Well, this video will bring you up to speed on what's going down in the Middle East, Asia Minor. Essentially, the Americans are really posturing. That's what it is, posturing on the Iranians, threatening them that they don't come to the table and basically capitulate, as Witkoff stated on the news late just today, matter of fact, that the Iranians, that Trump was surprised, curious as to why the Iranians are capitulating. Well, for those not in the know and up to speed, Persia, Iran is a regional power in the whole sense. It is not to be trifled with. It is the real deal. It is not Venezuela. Venezuela barely functions as a state. Whether that's due to the sanctions or communism is yet to be determined, but communism doesn't really have a track record of succeeding economically, although Vietnam and China do say otherwise, but they're not really a communist as the Juche state of North Korea or the Soviet Union, which are true communist states, or are communist states, regardless of whatever North Korea says. But regardless of that, besides the point, at the focal point of it all is Iran has over 600,000 professional troops. Some of that, of course, it usually goes 2 to 4 logistical per every 1 ground troop. So Iran has at least 100,000, 125,000 real active ground troops, not including its militia, Barij, how you pronounce it, the 20 million militia unit that can be called upon in emergency. But excluding that out the picture and just focusing on ground naval troops that can really go head to head in full contact, Iran has about 100,000 minimum to 150,000. The rest is also logistical supporting. So let's say Iran has 125,000 to USA's current 50 to 100,000 total troops in the Middle East. So of course most of that's logistical. So in any case, the US is not, I mean, you have the ballistic missile arsenal of all of Iran versus some 3 to 4 carrier groups and some bases that don't have the Patriot or THAAD. I mean, the 12-day war, the U.S. wasted, 150 THAAD missiles, 120 missiles, and it makes 10 of those a year. So, in just 12 days, the U.S. went through almost its lifetime supply of THAAD missiles, anti-air missiles. So the U.S. is in no way, shape, or form ready for a real war. So this posturing is maybe that. If it does attack Iran with what it has, I mean, that's just foolish. And people think, oh, why would it do that if it is not ready militarily? Well, it has to do with the BRICS. It has to do with the Belt and Road Initiative. China is reviving Iran as a regional hub via the Silk Road, Belt and Road Initiative, reviving the old Silk Road, using Azerbaijan, but mainly the Caspian Sea, as a transport hub to Russia, which after the Ukraine war simmers down, it will revert back to the biggest trading hub and exporter of resources to Europe. Once that won't happen anytime soon. It really depends on how fast and how quickly the U.S. Diminishes as a world power, exerting its influence at will. And that's all predicated on how fast nations dump the U.S. dollar. So, not anytime soon, but it's unlimited time, borrowed time. Definitely within the century. So, be a world guided and shaped by a communist nation. However that will play out, but that's besides the point. Essentially, the U.S. is I mean, we're not even taking into account the Peshmerga, Kateb Hezbollah, all these militia units supported, aided, trained, funded, equipped by the Iranians in Iraq, who today, February 22nd, Sunday, 2026, have stated they would help in the ground war if it came to that, to push out, bomb all the Americans in Iraq. Same with Syria, and then the Lebanese Hezbollah. So it's not looking good. It's all doing this for the sole reason to protect Israel as a geopolitical factor on the world stage. Right now, I mean, when you look at it from a just economic point of view, Israel is not really an economic power. It's more of a geopolitical asset. From Israel, you control the old trade routes, west to east, via the Suez Canal, land routes, anything is within striking distance of missiles, airplanes. Nothing can basically go through Asia Minor without Israel acknowledging and monitoring it via plethora of ways, radio, just air contact, air surveillance, and just satellites. But that's all changing now with the Belt and Road Initiative, because it's Chinese infrastructure and Chinese money being put into Iran. So Israel will have to strike Iran directly if it wants to change any regional power from upsetting the balance of power status quo in the region, being that Israel is the preeminent power in the region. But that's changing. In 20 years' time, Iran will be the dominant, preeminent power. I mean, already it's a military juggernaut. 12-day war has shown. Even with NATO, U.S. support, Jordan, Arab countries, Bahrain, UAE, even with the support of the whole GCF, NATO, U.S., Iran showed that it was now the preeminent power in the region. Not so much in logistical capability, but through its asymmetrical warfare, through missiles, showed that Israel was no longer undisputed heavyweight in the region. It is now taking a backseat and now has to rely on allies, mainly the USA, NATO, Europe, EU, through the Red Sea debacle with the Houthis and Saudi Arabia's failed invasion of the Houthis showed that they cannot contend with the Houthis in guarding the Red Sea or taking it out as a regional actor. This is a proxy state, whether one believes it or not, of the Iranians. The Iranians showed that their proxy itself is a player in the region, which the US and NATO combined could not concisely fight. So this is evident that the balance of power is changing in the region. As it stands now, I mean, Iran is it's not really so much the juggernaut in the sense that it could reshape the balance of power in the region through its military might alone. But defensively, I mean, it's a fortress. I mean, there's no way Iran can fall. Not with the numbers at hand, given the numbers at hand. The U.S. would have to come with over at least 1 million troops minimum. And that's just ground troops. So, really, I mean, that's just the front line, really real active troops on the battlefield. 1 million. So that means they would have to have 3 million. Because logistical. So 2 to 1. 3 to 1, usually, the U.S. U.S. is pretty well supplied. I think it usually has a 4 to 1 factor for every one. Has 3 to 4 troops supporting it. Or at least used to. 2016, my information may be dated, but pretty sure, given its gargantuan military side budget, it's still the same. So the U.S. would need at least 3 million total troops in the region to really take Iran into Libyan status of a dysfunctional non-state actor But it doesn't have that. It's not doing that. That's not going to happen. So, given what it has at the moment, 150,000 total troops with 4 carrier fleets, 2 to 4, is just not looking good. It's just whatever Trump is thinking. I mean, it's not militarily peer reviewed, that's for certain. I mean, all it's going to do is awaken the wasp nest, and you don't even have the gear to protect yourself, let alone attack the wasp nest. So whatever happens, the gas will go up in price. We will feel it. That's why this whole debacle is our problem for Americans, because we're going to feel it on the gas, the oil. And that's if the war is short in duration. If it becomes let's say a month or longer, I mean, that changes everything. And that's only if it becomes a missile exchange, airplane exchange. If any at all these militia units in Iraq partake, as they say they will, and Hezbollah attacks, I mean, that changes everything from a price perspective. I mean, I wouldn't say they have enough to kick out the U.S., but the casualty rate will be. It also depends on the directive, on what they're told, Peshmerga in Iraq, and what the IRGC in Iran does. I mean, the U.S. doesn't have enough Patriot missiles, THAAD missiles, air defenses to defend its bases. It's very small bases in Syria. That's why they gave the SDF and the other Syrian government their bases there, or drawdown. So the U.S. is going to have serious casualties if it doesn't pull out or bring in new. But even then, I mean, the 12-day war showed that the U.S. latest and greatest tech is not going to do anything to do swarm tactics, just inundated saturation tactics of the air defenses of the PAC-3, THAAD system, etc. It's not looking good for. I mean, after this war, if Iran was very serious in its rhetoric, and it should be, given the stakes at hand. Basically, Persia is fighting for the prestige of the Russians and Chinese and BRICS. What's it called? SCO, Shanghai Cooperative Treaty, something like that. SCO, Shanghai Cooperative Organization. I mean, Iran is representing bigger juggernauts than itself, so I'm sure it won't completely take out the Americans or sink an aircraft carrier, but it will definitely hit all its bases to the point showing militarily that the Iranians can at any moment kick out the Americans at current American levels, as I reiterated, where Americans need to be to defend themselves. So if this war kicks off, I hope it doesn't, but if it does, it will be a complete, utter failure for the Americans and NATO, rearranging the whole region. But if one has to ask himself, if they're doing this for the geopolitical standing, preservation of Israel, why would they do it and not go all out? Well, that just shows you the Americans are going broke, and they're doing what they can, and they know they're going to lose the region either way once the dollar is just another currency on the international stage, like a peso, God forbid Bolivar, but that's where it's going. So the U.S. is doing what it can, doesn't have many options. It either does nothing, waits, and loses the region either way, or at least tries to slap Iran, and then the process gets hit with the fist. And that is the situation. So hopefully cooler heads prevail and the U.S. is posturing and we leave the region, nothing happens, and slow crumbling of the American empire occurs. Or it could fast track and then we're going to feel it at home, and that's for certain.